Vortex Cannon in the devices tree. Now this is what the power looks like. This power costs the same as Gauss Grenade, Stasis Field, and Cryofoam. And at my item level gear that I have equipped, my power cost comes out to 954. Just to compare, my cheapest powers, which are Sticky Bomb, Intimidation, Decoy, Taser, and Distract, their power cost is 795. So Vortex is at about mid-tier power cost. Now, Vortex Cannon inflicts the dazing power interaction, and here you'll see what it looks like. It's that purple and pink animation on the sparring target's head. It will hit a target in its cone area of effect. These NPCs will also take additional damage because of the way Vortex Cannon works. Vortex Cannon not only inflicts the dazing power interaction, it also benefits from additional damage to it, and the way you can tell on any other power that benefits from that is right here. Under power interaction it says dazes enemies. Underneath that it says dazed enemies take additional damage. That is your 50% damage bonus, and powers like Napalm also benefit from that. Frostbend or electrified enemies take additional damage. That's just taking advantage of the power interactions that most power sets have. So with Vortex, you'll inflict it and you benefit from it, which is beneficial to some other power interactions, which I won't get into now, but you don't have to worry about looking for another power to throw in your loadout to deal more damage. You just have to cast Vortex Cannon and it pretty much does everything for you. Now again, this is a cone AoE, and it will apply the PI to a target in the cone AoE. Now Vortex Cannon is mid-range, it's not far range. Here I'm at 25 meters. I cast it's not going to reach. If I get within 12 meters, which is the same distance as EMP, I should be able to hit him. And here's EMP. It's the same range. Now, just a little bit more on the cone AoE. I'm locking onto this target, and in instances, because positioning is always important when you're chasing damage, if I'm standing, if the target is right behind me and I hit this power, I'm not going to deal damage. If I stand right next to it, I will not deal damage. There's a certain angle that you have to be at in order to register, and here is one example. If I step too far to my left, it's not going to work. Move further back, it's not going to work. You always have to kind of get an idea of the range and the angle of your cone, so that when you're in a raid, you can make sure that you're hitting these targets. And here I'll do it on this group. If I'm too far up, the targets behind me don't take damage, neither do the ones to my right. Now some of them do, and now all of them do. That knockdown effect was due to my hand mod. Actually, not my hand mod, my weapon mod, the home turf mod, blast adapter. That has that's none of the control effects in Vortex Cannon itself. So kind of play around and get used to your angle on Vortex Cannon if you want to benefit from it. The control effect on Vortex Cannon. Actually, before I get into control effects, in controller role, this is your damage debuff, and all damage debuffs in controller power sets reduce damage output, total damage output, not an NPC's precision, not an NPC's might. Its total damage output is reduced by 7%. Some NPCs are programmed. For example, I think Jared in Desecrated Cathedral, the alert. If you apply the damage debuff to him, his damage is reduced significantly. Very few NPCs actually benefit from that type of mechanic. Most of them, you just throw the debuff, and again, total damage output reduced by 7%. Now this damage debuff will hit only one target, despite the fact that the damage and the power interaction is inflicting 8. So here I'll show you. I've hit these targets. This one, the red crosshair under the sparring target's name tag, that tells you that the damage debuff is active. These other ones that were also hit don't have it. Again, because only one target gets the debuff. And only one target. Unless you have one of those affinity bonuses from the elite gear. In PvP, if you use the damage debuff on a DPS player, all it does is it removes their damage modifier. So anytime a DPS casts a power, they're activating a damage modifier. When you hit them with this debuff, you remove it. So they won't deal 50% more damage, 40% more damage, depending on what power they cast, and if you're in an arena or if you're in open world, it will vary. Now, this knockdown, because it has a knockdown effect, which you can't see on these sparring targets, but it will knock down at most 4 targets. So again, Vortex Cannon will apply the dazing effect to 8. It will damage 8, but it only knocks down 4. Now, again, because I can't really control these targets, let me zoom out my camera all the way. Now, in controller roll, let's say there was a target right here, right on this spot, and I'm standing over here. Now, if you take your hand or a ruler or whatever, and you take my toon and you kind of bring it straight down, you'll see that my toon is aligned directly with EMP, or just in between EMP and distract. Now, in controller roll, when you hit Vortex Cannon, you will push that target all the way to where my Vortex Cannon is. Now, my Vortex Cannon is my L2 square, which is the red cooldown. This is my EMP, and this is my distract. So I'm standing basically about in between those two. Now, if I hit Vortex Cannon again, that target will fly either directly on top of the Vortex Cannon animation. If you take your hand or finger and just point it up, it'll land either right above it or a little further to the left of it. That's in controller roll. In damage roll, if you hit Vortex Cannon, now you should be able to see my decoy, and I'll pop that power now. It's my L2 circle, the one with the cooldown on it. Now, in damage roll, that knockdown is reduced, and if I was to hit Vortex Cannon, if it's a NPC with low willpower that you can control, that target will be pushed right above decoy's tray loadout. So you'll take your finger right there where decoy is, point it up, and then that's where your target will land in damage roll. So that's something that may come in handy, and the reason why they did that, they reduced the distance in damage roll, is just so that if you were DPSing and those targets are flying, because it used to fly further, it used to fly nearly, I think, more than 12 meters. The reason why it's a shorter distance in damage roll is because you don't want to go chasing your target. You just want to be able to pop it and have that target still within range of you, so that you don't go across a map or 12 meters away just to grab them and do damage to them. So that's why they did that. Now, in damage roll, Vortex Cannon benefits from power regen from battle display. So this is battle display. As long as you have this ability and you cast Vortex Cannon, you'll have it active. And you don't need to hit a target. You just need to have battle display up, and you could spam Vortex Cannon over and over, and you'll keep it up. Unless, of course, the window expires for battle display. Now, Vortex Cannon is also one of the powers that you can choose if you're using the advanced mechanic. and you need 3 powers, and then you hit either EMP, which is this power, or P dart. And because Vortex Cannon inflicts the power interaction of dazed, you can use the dazed PI to tag yourself, and you don't need to hit a target at all to register the PI. And I'll get more into the advanced mechanic and how to use Vortex Cannon with it. I'll do that in another video. Now, Vortex Cannon deals the exact same damage as Gauss Grenade, as Napalm Grenade, as P-Dart when you're not using P-Dart with the advanced mechanic. The burst damage is the same for all of these burst abilities, so it doesn't matter which one you use. The only difference is that Vortex Cannon applies a different power interaction, and it's a mid-range ability. So that's really the only difference between all the other burst powers. It's also a cone AoE. I'm not sure if I mentioned that just now. Now, Vortex Cannon is ideal in a multi-target loadout, and by that I mean it's not single target damage. As long as you hit 2 targets, just 2, you could hit 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, it doesn't matter, but as long as you're hitting a minimum of 2 targets, you will net 2 targets worth of damage on the scorecard or on any device that you're using to measure your total damage. So although damage splits on 3 targets or more, meaning that you'll deal less damage per target, as long as you hit 2 or more, you will net 2 targets worth of damage. So I mean, it doesn't matter whether I'm hitting these NPCs behind me. On the scorecard, on a damage measuring tool, I'll still net 2 targets worth. So for example, with no power interaction I did 3,000. On 2 targets I'll deal 6,000. Now that's a range, 6,000 worth of damage. That's with no power interaction. Now obviously with the power interaction active, as the rotation continues in the advanced mechanic, I'll be dealing a damage range of around 5,000 at my current might. And of course these targets have a lower combat rating, so those damage are going to be inflated. But what I'm trying to say is that with the power interaction active, while the rotation is going in an instance, just for an example, I'll be dealing 5,000 on 1 target. On 2 targets that becomes 10,000, right? Because your damage is double. Now this is just giving you an exact number because it's always a range. Now let's say you hit 3 or 4 or 5. It doesn't matter. You're still dealing 10,000, all right, around that range worth of damage. So despite it being a cone, just make sure that you angle yourself correctly so that you're hitting 2 targets minimum. Now this target, or well this power, it will register damage on encasements, but it will not register damage on the target inside it. Some powers bypass the encasement and do damage in there. Now that does not mean that you can't use this with the advanced mechanic, because post a hotfix to game update 54, you'll be able to literally cast any powers and you don't have to hit a target. And let's say I had 2 other powers for my PI, and I'll be able to do advanced mechanic damage. I think I covered everything. Again, this is a burst power. It's not damage over time. Same damage as Gauss.